Let us now move more deeply into a time of worship, shaping worth and meaning from the ordinary as a way to honor the gift of life we all share. Together, let us kindle a flame symbolizing our co-creation of sacred space at home and in this place made sacred by years of love. As you do, those of you on Zoom, please write in the chat that a chalice is lit on your street. And please say the words with me. We are a welcoming people of diverse beliefs who commit to nourish the spirit, broaden the mind, nurture the earth, and build community. May this flame we kindle remind us to strive today and every day to love beyond belief.
Once again, I say I'm centering my sermon on the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. You can tune out if you need to. Just call me or text me or email me if you want. I had an abortion in my early 20s, between 6 and 8 weeks into an unplanned and undesired pregnancy. I was in graduate school and married. We made the decision together. After the procedure, my spouse asked me how I felt, and I said, relieved. He told me that the pamphlet for support people he'd read in the waiting room said that that was a very typical response, and so I felt relieved as well as supported and affirmed. I have no regrets about choosing abortion, ever grateful for the life I could build before choosing to become a parent. I knew where to seek an abortion, and I faced no barriers to accessing one. Why I wanted an abortion is a deeply personal decision, and no one at the clinic asked me. I'd rather my family be left alone about details. Our most intimate circle of people know why we chose what we did. And while I can speak easily of my great love for the 2 children I chose to bear, I have no word for the piercing awe and gratitude that infuses me when I think of the enormity of growing a separate life inside my body, fully knowing that life is not me, but is utterly dependent upon me for 9 months. That I am forever a part of my children, but not in any way them. They exist as separate, they have lives of their own, though those particular people, could not exist without the work of my body. In the course of my life, I have also had 2 miscarriages. One, a sorrowful end to a loving desire, and one, an unexpected sorrow. Had that second beginning been able to grow, I don't know what my choice about it might have been. But when I have had a choice to prevent or to allow another life to emerge through the agency of my life, I chose, with the support of those closest to me, as a self-determined, independent, fully human being. That is how I chose. That right of control over my body is now appropriated by the federal government. Not because I am imprisoned, not because I have been declared mentally incompetent, but only because I have internal organs that can grow a fetus. I reject this current reality, and I will fight it by every means I possess. Black American writer and activist James Baldwin said, "We can disagree and still love each other. Unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression, and denial of my humanity and right to exist. And I'm going to say that again. We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. The right to abortion is a right to bodily autonomy, the right to be considered a fully human being with a discerning mind capable of thought and feeling leading to action concerning one's person. To be denied the right to control my own body is oppression. More sacred than any other need is choice, ultimately to be trusted with the responsibility of our own living. Denying the right to abortion is denial of my humanity. It is denial of my personhood. That is not just a matter of disagreement, a mere difference of opinion. Choosing or not choosing to have an abortion, and the reasons an individual chooses or doesn't choose abortion, those are a matter of opinion, as well as an opportunity for conversation, learning, and empathy. Denying a person the right to make that choice for themselves is oppression and dehumanization, and that is intolerable. I cannot be compelled to donate blood. I cannot be compelled to donate one of my kidneys. I cannot be compelled to give someone a slice of my liver or crack my bones open to provide bone marrow. When I am dead, no one can harvest my healthy organs to provide life-saving transplant to another person, not unless I say so, and my loved ones make sure that my wishes are known to the healthcare industry. And yet, my ovaries and uterus and vagina are now compelled by the federal government to endure pregnancy and birth, no matter what my wishes are, no matter what a physician says is best for my health. The threat against me is real, regardless that some states in America, including Minnesota, have laws protecting the right to choose abortion. The threat is real, regardless that I am well past the age that I can get pregnant. The Supreme Court is telling me that I can have control over all my parts and organs, except the ones that are potential for bringing a new person into reality. At least for now, I maintain control over my other parts, but I fear the slippery slope. Here's the thing. I'm not just a set of parts. I am a whole human being, and to take away control of one part is to take away control of the other parts. I and all people with ovaries and uteruses and vaginas, trans men and non-binary people too, we have just been handed a decision that tells us we are not fully human. We are dependents of the state. We are constructed as incapable of making our own decisions about how our bodies will work and how our lives will be shaped. The Equal Rights Amendment, floating around since the 1970s, is still not the law of this land. As a woman, I have the same right to vote as a man, and yet I could be paid less for the same job, I could be charged more for the same services, and importantly, passed over for employment and promotion precisely because I might get pregnant. All this can happen unless I sue, since we have made some progress in piecemeal fashion to ensuring equality. But the assumption of full equality is not baked into our laws and governance here and now in 2022. I find this hideous and enraging. I find this part and particle of how the United States of America was founded. This is a reality that I am not celebrating tomorrow. Abigail Adams enjoined her husband, John Adams, as he drafted the founding documents of this land, to remember the ladies. She wrote a letter to her husband where she said, "I long to hear that you have declared independency. And by the way, in the new code of laws that I suppose it will be necessary for you to make, I desire you would remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could." And we know that Adams and the other so-called founding fathers did no such thing. They did not extend the right to vote to women, nor the protection of law to businesses run by women, nor the right of full economic control of earnings and inheritance by women. In fact, those rights were eroded in the 1900s. By means of the Declaration of Independence in the Constitution, women were constructed as dependents of the males, husbands, fathers, brothers. Women were constructed as not fully human, unable to make decisions on behalf of their own lives. Now, the long-held ideas about gender and sexuality inhabiting and followed by those founding fathers yearning for a new form of government and a break from the tyrannies of European modes of social organization and religious expression, they were infused with these things that they brought with them, despite their desire for change. The men who longed for democracy, for more self-determination, for more humans to have a say in how government governs and how society functions, those men did not extend the exercise of democracy to every human. Thus, some humans were relegated to a position of dependency, treated like children and animals. Women, of course, were not the only ones constructed as dependent or worse. So were all the people of Africa enslaved, all the indigenous people driven from land and ways of life. At the founding of the nation, we celebrate officially tomorrow. Dehumanization is in its core. To remind myself of this reality, I reread every year at this time, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July?" A speech Frederick Douglass gave in 1852 after the signing of the Fugitive Slave Act, which meant Northerners had to return slaves to the South. He gave this speech to the citizens of his adopted hometown of Rochester, New York. It is a lengthy speech, and you can read many words in praise of the men who broke from British tyranny and asserted self-rule. You can read much appreciation for the theory of democratic governance and notions of personal freedom. Douglass loves those ideas, as I know we do too. And you will read a clear and passionately presented and excoriating account of just what all those founders and theories and notions had to do with the enslaved, of which Douglass was one. Absolutely nothing. At the founding of our country, neither government nor Christian church, barring the Quakers and not all of them, gave a thought to the enslaved Africans or the decimated indigenous for that matter, except to insist on utter dependency and thus abject and total oppression. Douglass says, and he is quoting Psalm 137, "Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the Jubilee shouts that reach them. If I do forget, if I do not faithfully remember those bleeding children of sorrow this day, may my right hand forget her cunning, and may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. A democratic government is meant to enable more voices to have a say, but human beings like power, and the exercise of power was at the founding and is evident in our present. Women and people with uteruses, the enslaved and descendants of the enslaved, ravaged indigenous peoples, all of us gained more rights in 250 years, though full equality remains elusive. And in this moment, the United States of America is moving backward, taking away rights, regardless of how beliefs, ideas, and practices have changed over 250 years. Regardless that the founding fathers and the founding documents actually make provision for social and cultural change that could not have been anticipated 250 years ago. As we celebrate a country gaining independence from tyranny, we find ourselves as a people confronting tyrannically imposed dependence orchestrated by a minority group that wants to maintain its power. Despite popular majority opinion, the actions of the Supreme Court and the Senate hamstringing of majority voting by a minority-controlled filibuster, these effectively disempower the will of the citizens to assert control over our own lives. What are we going to do about it? May we begin by searching our hearts for those times when we have chosen inaction or silence in the face of injustice and abuse of power. May we search our hearts for our failure to claim our own power. Our times demand that we recognize that while the government shapes our lives, we have the power to shape it. Our times demand that we reflect, that we resolve, and that we act. Our Unitarian Universalist values call us to uphold bodily autonomy and reproductive justice. Each of us is inherently worthy and dignified. Each individual is whole and relevant. And all decisions that restrict the human thriving of one kind of person send out ripples, reverberating on the interdependent web of all existence. The oppression of some of us affects all of us. The liberation of some of us enhances the goodness of life for all of us. That is the way our faith is built. Ours is not a faith where a few rich, outwardly straight, mostly white men, fearful of losing power, can tell us how to be religious. The rhetoric of the evangelical right calls for a holy war to lead the nation back to the moral stance that made America great. And they tell us, Unitarian Universalists, liberal Christians, Jews, Muslims, those with belief centered in the earth or in humanistic process, they tell all of us that to be aligned with Jesus, to have family values, to be moral, one must be against abortion and gay people. And they impose power over us when they orchestrate votes for candidates who are anti-abortion and anti-gay and often racist as well. Well, Frederick Douglass reminds us that oppression makes a wise person mad. Abigail Adams wrote to John, "If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a revolution, and we will not hold ourselves bound to any laws in which we have no voice or representation." Oh, that revolution had come earlier. Douglass calls us to fierce action, for it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and its crimes against God and humans must be proclaimed and denounced. We, too, can protest. We, too, can exercise our religious principles by seeking candidates for political office whose sense of liberty accords with our own. We need to be on our way to freedom land. Nothing else will do. Liberation for all humans. That is what Unitarian Universalism, our faith tradition, this is what it calls us to do and to be. We may think differently, we may decide differently, but an oppressive government cannot tell us what we will think and do. And though days be dark with storms and burdens weigh our hearts and troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on because I will not be alone. We know we can go on and meet these challenges because we will go together as a people committed to love and justice. We go together, always together, as you remember today and every day that you are loved, you are worthy, you are welcome, and you are needed. May you feel it so. May it be so. And may we say together, amen. Let us make a promise that we will remain committed to sustained and robust relationship with each other regardless of our differences of opinion. May we be connected to the vision of our faith community, to the values of Unitarian Universalism, and to the interdependent web holding us all. As Denny extinguishes the chalice in the sanctuary, I invite you to extinguish your chalice at home. Please say these words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.